Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Messiah, the son of David. Today we'll be looking at Chullin, page 67, and we'll start with 67a, and we left off at the bottom of 66b, so I'll just read the English from that part, and when I get onto 67, I'll announce it. The bottom of 66b, just for context, the Gemara asks, how can this verse be an instance of a generalization, a detail and a generalization? There are two generalizations that are adjacent to each other. Both instances of the term in the waters precede the details such that the verse is actually a generalization and a detail. Ravina said, as they say in the West, in Israel, whenever you find two generalizations juxtaposed one with the other, followed by a specific detail. And now we are on our daily daf of 67, Chullin, Samach Zayin, Amid Aleph on the top, with the words Hatel Prat B'neim. Hatel Prat B'neim Dunaim B'chlal, B'prat B'chlal, B'mayim Klal, B'yamim B'nechalim, Prat, B'mayim Chazar B'chlal. And place the detail between the two generalizations and then expound them as a generalization and a detail and a generalization. Therefore, the first instance of the phrase in the waters is a generalization. The phrase in the seas and in the rivers is a detail. And by the second instance of the phrase in the waters, it is then generalized again. Klal upratu klal iatadan ela keina prat ma prat b'foyash ma'im novim of kol ma'im novim. My Rebbe, Charitzin, Uneitzin Leisura, Umay Miut, Boros Shichin, Umaros Letera. Therefore, as in any instance of generalization, and a detail and a generalization, you may deduce that the verse is referring only to items similar to the detail, just as the detail, seas and rivers, is referring explicitly to flowing water, so to fish without fins and scales found in all flowing water are forbidden. What does this include? It includes trenches and water channels to prohibit fish without fins and scales found in them. What does it exclude? It excludes pits, ditches, and caves, which are collections of still water to permit all fish found in them. Ve'ema ma haprat mefoirash ma'im gedelin al gabi karka av kol ma'im gedelin al gabi karka umay rabbi afilu boras shichin umaros asura umay miet kelim. The Gemara asks, but why not say, just as the detail refers explicitly to water that grows, meaning is found on the ground, so too includes all water that grows on the ground. And what would this include? It would include even pits, ditches, and caves to prohibit fish found in them that do not have fins and scales. And what would it exclude? It would exclude only those found in the vessels. The Gemara responds, if so, what use is the phrase, these you may eat, of all that are in the waters? Even without it, the vessels would be excluded, since they are not at all similar to seas and rivers. Rather, the phrase, these may you eat of all that are in the waters, serves to indicate that only trenches and water channels are considered similar to the detail, but all fish found in pits, ditches, and caves are permitted. The very Rabbi Yehoshua Tana b'mayim shtei pamim ein ze prat uprat ela riba umiet b'mayim riba b'yamim u'v'nechalim miet b'mayim chazar v'riba umiet v'riba hakol my Rabbi Charitzin Uneitzin Leisura Umay Miet Boros Shichin Umaros Letera. The Tana of the school of Rabbi Yishmael taught the verse's use of the phrase in the waters twice is not to be interpreted as a generalization and a detail, but rather as an instance of amplification and restriction. By the first phrase, in the waters, the verse amplifies. By the phrase, in the seas and in the rivers, it restricts. And by the second instance of in the waters, it amplifies again. According to the hermeneutical principle, when a verse amplified and then restricted and then amplified, it amplified the relevant category to include everything except for the specific matter excluded by the restriction, meaning in the seas and in the rivers. What, then, does it include? It includes trenches and water channels to prohibit fish without fins and scales found in them. And what does it exclude? It excludes fish found in pits, ditches, and caves to permit them. Ema, my Rabbi, Boiras, Yichin, Marois, Isura, my Miet Kalim, Im Kem Toichlu, my Ahani Le. The Gemara objects. Why not say, what does it include? It includes fish found in pits, ditches, and caves to prohibit them if they do not have fins and scales. And what does it exclude? It excludes only fish found in vessels. The Gemara responds, if so, what use is the phrase, these may you eat of all that are in the waters? Even without it, vessels would be excluded. Rather, it indicates that pits, ditches, and caves are excluded by the restriction, and all fish found in them are permitted. Ve'epoch ana kiritani metitya. Ditani matitya bar Yehuda. Mar Yisrael Rabbis Boris Jichen Umaris Letero Urois Yichaitzin Nitzinesuro Marabe Ani Boris Shichin Umaris Shehein Atzurim Kekelim Umoitzani Charitzin Unitzin Shehein Atzurim Kekelim. The Gemara objects, but perhaps I would reverse the statement and claim that fish without fins and scales in pits, ditches, and caves are prohibited, and those in trenches and water channels are permitted. The Gemara responds, one must say, as Matitya taught, as Matitya bar Yehuda taught, why did you see that caused, what did you see that caused you to include pits, ditches, and caves to permit them, and to exclude trenches and water channels to prohibit them? I include pits, ditches, and caves, which contain still water like vessels, and I exclude trenches and water channels, which are not still like vessels, as water flows through them. Hi, Sasum HaMefoirash Pligi Baravach Veravina Chad Omar Yeshlo Mefoirash Ve'en Lo Sasum Chad Omar Ein Lo Mefoirash Yeshlo Sasum. The writes on the previous Amud states that the Torah permits all fish without fins and scales in vessels, both explicitly and implicitly. The Gemara asks, which verse is the implicit source and which is the explicit source? Rav and Ravina disagree with regard to it. One says the verse permitting whatever has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers is the explicit source, and the verse prohibiting all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers is the implicit source. And one says the opposite, meaning that the verse prohibiting all that have not fins and scales is the explicit source, and the verse that permits whatever has fins and scales is the implicit source. My time on demand, Amar Yesh Mefoirash, Amalei. My time demand de Amar Lo Mefoirash, Amar Lach Minehu Deka Mishtaru Kelim. So Gemara asks, what is the reasoning of the one who says that whatever has fins and scales is the explicit source? The Gemara responds, that sage could have said to you, it is from this verse that the Gemara derived on the previous Amud that fish without fins and scales found in vessels are permitted. My time of demand Omar, and Lefarish Hai Hu de Ka Mochach Ahayich Di Me Hayach Havi Amina Bekelim Afal Gav Di Islay Nami La Techol. The Gemara asks, what is the reasoning of the one who says that all that have not fins and scales is the explicit source? The Gemara responds, the reasoning is that it is this verse that proves that the other verse permits all fish in vessels, as if one attempted to derive whether fish in vessels are permitted from the other verse alone, I would say the opposite. The verse indicates that a fish with fins and scales is permitted only in the seas and rivers, but in vessels, even if it has fins and scales, you may still not eat it. The phrase in the verse, and all that have not fins and scales, indicates that these restrictions apply only to fish in the seas and rivers. Amar Rav Huna, lo lishvei shichro b'siyasa v'urta dima polish le'el mitzviyasa v'hadar nefalechasa v'havi over mishum sheretz hashoretz al ha'oretz. Rav Huna says a person should not pour beer into a vessel through a straw to filter it at night, lest a creeping animal emerge from the beer above the straw and then fall into the cup. Since the drinker poured the beer through a filter, he will assume that all creatures found in the vessel originated there and are permitted despite lacking fins and scales. He will therefore drink the beer along with the creature, and doing so he violates the prohibition. Every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth is a detestable thing and shall be eaten. Leviticus 11:41. Ihachi b'mana nami dilma parish ledafna dimana b'hadar nafi lemana hasam hainu ribise. The Gemara objects, if so, that one must be concerned that a creeping animal may have fallen from the straw into the cup. One should also be concerned about any beer found in a vessel, as perhaps some creature emerged from the beer onto the side of the vessel, thereby becoming forbidden, and then fell back into the vessel. The Gemara responds there, that is the creature's normal manner of growth, to attach itself to the sides of the vessel, and it is not considered to have emerged from the liquid. Umana timara ditanya umana rabois boiros shikloma shoiche b'shoisim mahen ve'eno nimna tam lomar tochlu mikol asher b'mayim b'leichush dilma perush dafne dehadar nafil era hainu revise hachanami hainu revise. And from where do you say that emerging in its normal manner of growth does not render forbidden, as it is taught in the Braita? From where is it derived to include pits, ditches, and caves, that one may bend down and drink from them, and need not refrain from drinking the creeping creatures inside them? The verse states, "These may you eat of all that are in the waters," indicating that all fish in pits, ditches, and caves are permitted. And one might ask, let one be concerned that perhaps a creature emerged from the water onto the side of the pit or cave, thereby becoming forbidden, and then fell back into it? Rather, one must say that since that is the creature's normal manner of growth, it does not render it forbidden. Here too, with regard to beer in a vessel, that is the creature's normal manner of growth and does not render it forbidden. Amar le Rav Chizda Rav Huna Tani d'Mesai le Kol Sharetz Hasheretz Hasheretz Alaretz the rabbis Yavchushin Shesininan Tamid Sininan Ha Lasininan Sharet. Rav Chizda said to Rav Huna, a Braita is taught that supports your statement that one need be concerned only about filtered beer. The verse, every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth is a detestable thing, Leviticus 11:41, serves to include gnats found in liquid that one filtered. One may infer the reason that they are prohibited is because one filtered the liquids, but if one did not filter them, the gnats are permitted. Evidently, one need not be concerned that they emerged from the water onto the side of the vessel. Okay, we'll start. You know what? Let's go on to the next stuff. Amar Shmuel, Kishus Shehetilia. Shmuel said, with regard to prohibition against consuming creeping animals, Shmuel says a cucumber that became infested with worms, and now 67b on the top, Asura, while attached to the ground, is prohibited due to the prohibition of every swarming thing that swarms upon the earth, because the cucumber was considered part of the earth when the worms infested it. Okay, we'll stop here. Continue on the next Amud.